there, breathers.
And welcome back
to another fabulous episode of
All My Favorite People Are Dead.
I'm Shannon Butler.
I'm Sue Teresi. And here we are again, Shannon, at the end of a
New
great
Year's
year.
Eve.
New Year's Eve, and Shannon and I are working.
We're working. Yeah, but we're going to go have some grub. And
We're going to go get crunk and knock over a fruit stand and a liquor store, aren't we? Wasn't that the plan?
That
No?
was not
Dinner?
Dinner.
Dinner?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
That's
you
all
know,
right.
I always get that confused.
I'm not a partier.
Woohoo!
You are.
I'm the party animal till about 9:15, and then I'm
That's
in my
not true.
jammies. Yeah,
You
Yes,
party
I do.
harder than that. You do.
10 o'clock?
At least 10:30.
Twice a year?
Yeah.
Wow, no.
Your Halloween party was pretty crazy.
My Halloween party was rocking, but
That was a good
what
one.
time was that over? Like 9? Because we switched from our costumes to our jammies.
I don't know.
About
I
like
remember.
9, 10. Yeah, we're not. We're
Next
old.
year, I should just come as a zombie who turned into a zombie when she was sleeping, so I can be in my jammies already.
So what I did one year with a couple of girlfriends is we came in our jammies, became dressed as a slumber party.
Nice.
So you and Rich can come in pajamas and pillows and blankets.
Well, Rich,
And you can come as slumber party.
Rich doesn't have pajamas.
That's TMI. Okay.
He's,
We'll have to buy him. You should buy him a Christmas pair. You should come in matching. This is what you need to do now. Get him for Valentine's Day's birthday. Get matching jammies with
matching jammies.
the hat. The hat and the escape hatch.
Oh.
And you guys...
No, he would leave that shit open all night long.
I would laugh.
He would.
So you should get the matching, and if they have feet in it, that's even better. I swear you should do this, and that would be your present next year. Your costume next year, and you guys come as a slumber party.
He would be so mad at me if I got him pajamas.
Really? Why?
He'd be
It's
like,
cold out.
you know I don't wear that shit.
It's a costume. It serves a double purpose.
I think
it's a costume.
he enjoyed being a nun this year for his costume.
So, for those of you who don't know, her significant other came dressed as Mary Scary, Sister Mary Scary, because he's a pretty straight guy. You know, he's funny,
very.
but he's got that drive. He's not in your face like I am.
No.
And I know Shannon had to he doesn't want to get a costume. I said, he has to, come on. You're going to ruin the party. You'll be the only one without a costume, and all of that. So they get a costume. Nobody tells me. And he comes in as a lady nun. And I saw him walk in, and of all the things, I was like, I don't know. He could have picked, anything.
I think that was his way of getting back at the nuns that tortured him.
Okay.
When he was in Catholic school as a kid.
Oh, he was adorable and funny.
This one nun literally whipped him, and he ended up with a stutter as a child. He did, yeah.
They hit them on the knuckles. They wrap them on the knuckles.
The ruler,
right?
yeah. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Paybacks.
I think that was his way of...
Well, it was funny as hell.
It was funny,
literally.
Yeah. I mean, he looked adorable. He was
it was kind of hard to, I still want to know, why he made me tell him confession. I'm still...
he said he was going to go around and first he wanted a ruler. He's like, you need to give me an old-fashioned brass ruler. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Rulers were made of brass?
Yeah, back in the day.
Not wood?
No.
Oh, gee.
And then...
Oh, my God.
And then he wouldn't wear a crucifix. But then I was like, look, I got a rosary here. Just wear it.
What's the difference between a crucifix and a rosary?
The rosary has more beads on it for praying.
Rosaries have beads.
Yeah.
You both have the little guy on there, right?
Yeah. The little guy. The little Jew.
The little Jewish carpenter guy. I'm sure he comes with the territory.
Yeah. Anywho, no, it was funny. It was, but he's not big on dress up, and he's not big on pajamas. Yeah.
So you can, feed two birds with one stone. You can get them, and it's a dual purpose. He can wear it, and then that night he can come home and just crash. Yeah. Something to think about.
How did we end up talking about? Oh, we were talking about partying because it's
New Year's.
Eve.
Woo! Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Go team. Yeah.
So we're gonna go back
to another New Year's.
To 2 centuries ago.
Oh, when I was a little girl.
It was a long time ago.
2 centuries.
I'm currently reading this excellent book, and it's inspired me to take a look at the horrifying history behind it.
Oh wow.
I normally don't read historical fiction because I just plain old read nonfiction. I read history books because I'm a nerd. But
Go nerds.
This particular book, entitled "The House is on Fire."
The house is on fire. Don't bring the water, let the... I wasn't going to do it, but okay. Burn. Oh, wait, that's the roof. This is the house?
This is the house.
Did the roof in the house burn?
Well, actually, the roof did burn. Well, the whole thing burned.
Did they bring the water, or did they let the motherfucker burn?
I didn't find a whole lot of information about the fire department coming in here.
Okay.
This book was written by Rachel Beanland, and it's a fiction based on actual events.
Okay.
Lots of liberties are taken, of course, but it's overall.
But it actually happened.
Yeah, and I feel like she researched very well. The book, it covers events surrounding the tragic fire of the Richmond Theater in 1811. The theater was designed to accommodate 500 people. There was over 600 people in it that night. You know.
No smoke detectors,
right?
No sprinklers, none of that.
No.
So
this is 1811. This is
okay. So you see where?
Yeah.
I'm already getting. You're giving me the heebie-jeebies already.
And it takes place the night after Christmas, December 26th. So we're not too far away from it.
Right in that time. Yeah.
Needless to say, not all the people who were in the theater got out alive. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I mean, we talk about dead people, and a lot of people died in this fire, but at this point, all of the people who were involved in it are long dead. But we're going to get into it.
Okay.
Now, here's some background.
Okay.
The city of Richmond, Virginia, had about 10,000 people in it in 1811. 40% of which were enslaved African Americans.
Oh, gee.
Right, because it's, the South.
Yeah.
Before the Civil War.
Yeah.
The city was divided into 3 wards: Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe.
Who they named that after?
Yeah, who knew?
Wow.
With most people living in the Madison ward, which is the city center. And this is where the Richmond Theater was located. It was on the corner of H and 12th Streets. Now, there had been a theater on this location since 1780. The first one actually had burnt down in 1798.
There you go. So we'll build another one.
So in the same spot.
In the same spot.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Well, the next theater, they figured, we'll build a brick theater, right? The first one was more like barn-like. So now they build a brick theater. They figure, it won't catch on fire, or it's less likely to anyway. And it opened in January of 1806. It was 90 feet long, 50 feet wide, 30 feet tall, with a capacity for 500 people. Now, the theater, the company that was overseeing the performances on the night of December 26, 1811, was Placida and Green Company, which was started by Alexander Placida and Thomas Green. One of the prominent players in this company was actually Elizabeth Hopkins Poe, the mother of famous poet Edgar Allan Poe.
Good old
yes,
Edgar.
Exactly.
She was his mother. She was a performer.
His mom. Yeah, she was an actress, a very famous actress. She actually contracted pneumonia and died on December 8th in her Richmond home, leaving behind little Edgar and his 2 siblings. In the weeks before the fire, it was her illness and death that had provoked an outpouring of sympathy for the theater company. Right now, the theater or the company played several nights a week at the Richmond Theater, and then on December 26th, the program featured 2 full-length plays, and there was also an intermission with some light musical numbers in the middle. The first play was entitled The Father, or Family Feuds. It was by Dennis Diderot.
Didn't have Steve Harvey?
No Steve Harvey, no.
No?
This
It's a Family Feud.
This is in the days before Family.
Oh, okay.
Long before that.
Okay, I got confused.
This play was actually in French. The original play was in French. And it was translated into English by a man who lived in the area, Louis Guerdon. He actually operated Richmond's largest school for children. The second play was a pantomime. It was called The Bleeding Nun. Speaking of nuns.
Oh, gee. Wow.
By
a pantomime?
Yeah, a pantomime.
About a bleeding nun?
I know. People were weird back then.
They still are, but that's
yeah.
weird.
It is.
Really? What, did she lay there,
It's very ironic. The woman who was playing the nun was covered in like pig's blood, and then as the fire was going on, there's this nun running around covered in blood. I mean, just adding, even though it was fake, it was freaking out. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh wow. Okay.
So anyway, pantomimes were a British form of theater that involved music, slapstick, gender crossing, stuff like that, audience interaction. It was really, kids loved it. So there were a lot of kids in the theater that night. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, this was a family thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, on December 26th, more than 600 people packed into the Richmond Theater, filling the venue about 20% over its estimated capacity. The audience represented more than 6% of Richmond's total population. In attendance, there were some of Richmond's oldest families, some of Virginia's oldest families, heroes from the American Revolution, several state legislators, a former congressman, a former senator,
The whole town
a
was
bank
in this.
president.
Yeah.
Yeah, like everybody was there.
They all showed up.
Even newly elected Governor George William Smith was there. The first play began around 7 p.m. The next play began around 10:30. This is when it is believed the fire began. A chandelier, which still had some candles burning in it, had not been extinguished, was lifted by a pulley system up into the rafters, where it dangled next to some painted backdrops. Right, these there were about 34 backdrops painted with oil on hemp canvases. Actor Thomas West had taken the stage for the second act when he noticed some fiery flakes falling down onto his head. Multiple witnesses recalled hearing the general cry of "fire," followed by assurances that it's a false alarm. Thomas F. Mason told the Richmond Enquirer, the newspaper, that at first he supposed it was probably the falling of some ornaments or lights that were intended to illuminate the scene. But within 4 or 5 minutes, the roof had caught on fire, and just pure chaos ensued. Now, the theater was very poorly designed. Ironically, it seems like if you paid for the cheap seats, you were more likely to survive.
Oh, wow.
It's like the total opposite of the Titanic, right? If you were in steerage, you were dead.
Because they were closer to the exits?
Yeah, exactly. They were in the cheap seats on the galley, the main pit, right?
Yeah.
They could just take the back door out.
Last in, first out.
Yeah, basically. If you paid for the pricey boxes
You were
up
screwed?
above, you were fucked. Now, there were, in the gallery, the cheap seats towards the back, mostly reserved for free blacks or enslaved individuals. So, like, people would bring their slaves with them, like, here, you sit in the gallery, I'll be upstairs, you know. There was a narrow, dark, winding staircase that people had to navigate to get up to the upper boxes. There were 3 levels of boxes. It seemed like most of the 518 adults and 80 children, according to ticket sales, had paid $1 to sit on benches in front of the stage. Some got the chance to be in the more exclusive boxes, like we mentioned, that were raised on 2 levels, 3 levels, I should say. An additional 50 patrons had paid 25 cents each to sit in the gallery, so the cheaper seats. The fear of the flames sent people running.
Can you imagine?
Oh my God, terrifying. They were running
Stampeding.
upstairs, the boxes, they were in dimly lit, narrow hallways. Witnesses said you can barely get 2 people down the hallway at the same time. People were just, pushing, shoving,
no fire
falling.
laws, no fire escape. It's like when we did the triangle fire.
Exactly, yes.
Nothing
Also,
to help them.
the windows on the upper floors had been boarded shut to keep the cold winter winds from getting into the building.
So you couldn't even jump out the window?
So they had to actually pull the boards off and then pry the windows
by the time
open.
you do that, just to come to smoke, who knows?
I know. It's people are dropping like flies just from the fear of the fire and the smoke and getting trampled.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a horror.
A witness who was nearby at the time said, quote, "All those that fell..." I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. In the chaos and the weight of people trying to push their way down the stairs caused the staircase to collapse.
Yeah, naturally. That's what happened in the triangle fire.
So a witness said, all those that fell with the staircase must nearly have expired with the smoke at the time, as the smoke was excessively severe. He went on to add, "I heard neither sigh nor groan uttered from any of them." A local man named Charles Copeland had run into the theater in search of his daughter, Margaret. He came to the site of the staircase where it once stood, and he later said, quote, "Here was presented to my view the most appalling sight I had ever witnessed. At the foot of the staircase there lay 12 and 15 human beings, if not more, some of them manifestly alive, of which I discovered by the withering of their bodies." Like, ugh, horrible, horrible stuff.
It's terrible.
He never did find his daughter, sadly.
Oh.
In the panic of the fire, many people ended up being pushed, fell, and of course trampled in the dark.
Yeah, that's right.
Many people decided to break open the windows, where they then had to determine whether or not to jump.
How high? 3 stories?
3 stories, yeah. A lot of people didn't have the nerve to jump. Of course, they were too scared, especially ladies. They were awfully scared. Some people managed to jump and make it to safely, while others broke legs and arms in the process. At least one woman jumped, survived the fall, only to be crushed to death by others who jumped immediately on top of her.
Oh, gee.
Many women, especially those who were stuck on the upper floors, found themselves frozen in fear and were simply consumed by the flames and smoke. The screams and cries for help were heard, and nobody in Richmond had ever heard anything like this before. It was horrifying. Now, some people did try to help, including a local enslaved man who was actually a local blacksmith. His name was Gilbert Hunt. He had attended a late-night church service nearby. And then as he made his way to a local residence, the Mayo family. Now, his wife was enslaved by the Mayo family. So she's living there. He lives at the blacksmith shop. When he got there, Mrs. Mayo, his wife's owner, shall we say, told him to run to the theater and look for her daughter, who had gone to attend the theater that night. Her name was Louisa Mayo, and he was actually quite close with Louisa because she, unlike many women of her time, had taken the time to teach him how to read and write. He was very close with her, even though she was a white woman who technically owned his wife.
Wow.
But the girl had taken time to teach him how to read and write. So he got to the theater and was immediately called out by a doctor who was leaning out of one of the upper windows. His name was Dr. James McCaw. And he began tossing women down to Gilbert to catch.
Oh, wow.
So he's literally picking up women and tossing them out the window, and Gilbert's catching them down below. This goes on for a while. It's said that he probably caught about a dozen people that way, including the doctor himself, who was finally forced to jump because the flames had gotten too much. But as Dr. McCall was jumping, his riding boot caught onto something on the edge of the building, and he kind of slammed down on the building, and then eventually fell to the ground. And Gilbert wasn't even sure he was still alive, but he had broken several bones, but actually made it out. Now, sadly, the girl Gilbert had come to look for, Louisa Mayo, was killed in the fire. But everyone had seen Gilbert's amazing feat of rescue. And as a result, he would become a local hero later on. Later, he was able to buy his freedom. Okay. And he actually saved people in another fire later on.
Oh, no.
The Virginia Penitentiary in Richmond burnt down. And as prisoners were escaping out the windows to get away from the flames, he was helping to catch them.
Like volunteer fireman.
I know. Yeah, exactly. It's basically what he was. Now, in when Gilbert was an old man in his late years, he was kind of financially struggling, and locals actually wrote a book about him. A man named Philip Barrett wrote a book about him, and all proceeds of the book went to Gilbert, which was very nice. Yeah, so he was well loved and appreciated for his endeavors.
Being a hero.
Yeah, exactly. George Tucker, who would later become a congressman and one of the founders of the University of Virginia, he also is credited for running back into the theater and saving a couple of ladies as well. When it comes down to it, many more women died than men. Some people at the time claimed it was men who were just being cowards and running out and not bothering to save anyone. Modern historians say the reason for the high death toll for women was simply there were more women in the theater than men.
Also, they can't run in those dresses.
Yeah,
who knows what they're wearing? You know, when those dresses catch fire,
right.
you know.
Yeah, their fabric is much more likely to catch fire, and so I imagine.
So and with those big bulky crinolines and the thingies, you can't run in it anyway.
Exactly. The next morning, Gilbert Hunt came back to the theater, still looking for signs of life. He would later write, quote, "There lay, piled together, one mass of half-burned bodies. The bodies, all classes and conditions of people, the young, the old, the bond and the free, the rich and the poor, the great and the small, were all lying there together. Some of them were so badly burned that it was almost impossible to recognize them. Others were almost uninjured, yet life had left their bodies, and there they lay, cold and stiff and dead." That was what he wrote later on. The bodies were identifiable only through pieces of clothing, jewelry, watches, stuff like that.
They didn't work. That was before tooth recognition.
Right. Yeah. Way before that. Yeah. That was back in the day when if you had a sore tooth, you went to the barber. And that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, for example, recognizing people by what they wore, the governor, whose remains were described as, quote, "a crisped lump."
Ew.
Yeah. Was identified by a buckle that he wore on his neck, because that was in the day of the puffy stock thingies. Yeah. So that they were able to find, and like, oh, that's the governor. Of the 72 people that died, 54 were women. And most, as I said, were quite prominent people.
Where 72 people died
72.
out of 600.
Yeah.
That's not, I thought it was going to be worse. I mean, that's not good.
It's not good.
But I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be like a couple of hundred.
Right.
Okay.
And
well,
that's what everyone believed at the time. There's like, oh, there must be 200 people dead.
Sure,
But no.
because how did 600 people run out
Right.
like one door, you
Right.
know, or whatever?
Well, I think it's because most of the people were down in the gallery in the pit in that area.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they were able to get out.
Yeah. Now, including the dead was Governor of Virginia, George William Smith, who had only been elected 3 weeks beforehand.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. A former U.S. Senator and the president of the Bank of Virginia at the time, Abraham Venable, was killed. Benjamin Botts, he was actually the lawyer who helped defend Aaron Burr in his treason trial in 1807. 19-year-old Sarah C. Conyers, who was the belle of Richmond society. I mean, beautiful, talented. She was reportedly found dead in the arms of her boyfriend, the Navy Lieutenant James Gibbon, who was the son of a Revolutionary War hero. There was also some died like days after the fire from their wounds and injuries they sustained. Yeah. So the total number is believed to be about 76. Give or take.
That's still not what I thought you were going to say for back then.
Yeah.
In Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Still,
okay.
It's
Still,
a lot.
well,
It was the biggest disaster of that sort to ever hit the young nation at that time. There was a bit of an effort to point the finger of blame on a possible arsonist as part of a slave revolt.
Oh,
yeah. Like some of they had believed it was a group of angry slaves getting back at the whites for by burning down the theater full of them, but there was no evidence for it, and there were plenty of enslaved people in the theater, so that doesn't make sense. It was clearly an accident involving the chandelier. The theater company was never blamed for the incident. Everyone seemed to agree that the high amount of death was due to the poor design and construction of the theater itself. Now, a burial committee was formed very quickly after the fire.
You would think after the first fire in that location, they would have... Okay, they placed the new building on top, but they would have done something better with the design, being that the previous building had burned down, right? Like adding more exits or whatever they could have done.
Well, there actually were quite a few exits. It was just... The problem was, if you were up in those boxes...
Getting so it was those people that passed.
Staircase, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was the bad.
That was it. So it was a height thing, no fire escape. I mean, they didn't have that back then, but some means of egress.
Yeah. There were a couple of exits. There was one by the stage. I think there was one by the orchestra pit. And, of course, the ones in the back. Although the doors came inward, which also is a problem when everyone's trying to get out. Yeah. So the burial committee, like I said, was formed very quickly after. And they decided that the remains of the victims should not be removed from the site. But rather buried in a mass grave there at the location. So what they decided to do, many people at the time believed that this fire was actually the wrath of God.
Of course.
That's what they believed.
Because people would be behaving poorly?
Well, yeah, they're like, this is what we get for going to the theater instead of church. Some people like, this is the sin of slavery. It was a mix of things.
Okay.
So anyway, it was God's way of punishing Richmond.
Okay.
So what they decided to do was on the spot of the theater, they would build a church. And so they did. And they would put in a big crypt for the remains of the victims inside the church.
Okay.
So it took 3 years of fundraising and building.
They did a mass grave.
Yeah.
And they put a church on top of it.
Yes.
And they put them in a crypt. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
So it's called Monumental Church. It was opened in 1814 on the location, and it served as a church well into the 1960s. I believe it's a historic site now. It's still there. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you go into the basement, there's a brick crypt, and that's where the remains of the victims lay today. Oh. Yeah. And that, my dear breathers, is the story of the Richmond Theater Fire of 1811.
Very good. Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder when you hear about disasters like the Titanic or the Triangle Fire or this fire, in the day. It makes you wonder, how long does it take people to learn from these mistakes and make, adjustments for safety?
Sure.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. You hear stories, the Titanic had everything wrong with it, inferior this and not enough that, and well, okay, why? And 2020 hindsight, and
this isn't
human tragedy.
This isn't the biggest fire. The largest fire ever was almost a century later, in 1903, the Iroquois Fire. which was in Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah,
where there was
the Chicago Fire. Is that the one?
602.
Is that the one with Mrs. O'Leary's cow? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
I don't know.
The cow started the fire in the barn, kicked something over, and the whole town burned.
I think you're thinking of the Fire of London.
No, Mrs. O'Leary didn't live in London. No, the fire of the Chicago Fire, Mrs. O'Leary's cow.
This is just the Iroquois Theater Fire.
Oh,
It's
that
just
was
a
the theater.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting my fires confused. I don't know.
No, that's another one. I should do that as a whole separate
The Chicago Fire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Great Chicago.
Well,
that's what I'm thinking. I think I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm
this
thinking.
is just, it's not the Chicago Fire. It's just the Iroquois Theater in Chicago.
Another theater
yeah.
burned.
Yeah, and 602 people died just in
Oh,
that
gee.
theater.
600 people
Yeah.
died in that theater.
Just in that theater, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, there you go.
We'll do that another time, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. We'll
That's
do
a
more
huge,
fires. We'll do
huge
more
thing, yeah.
fires. Oh, gee. Oh.
Yeah, but that's over almost a century later. That's in 1903. So almost a century after the Richmond Theater Fire. You'd think that, they'd learn how to put
Triangle
together-
Fire, no, they didn't give a crap.
No, I
The
know.
things were locked, they couldn't get out. They didn't give a crap. I mean, that's really what it was.
Right.
Well, what do we care,
Yeah.
It's fine. Throw that lit cigarette in the soiled linens. What could go wrong?
No, nothing.
Yeah. Jeez.
So there you have it, folks.
Wow, fascinating.
What a way to end the year.
Well, we're going to end and start the year what we do. That's what we do. That's why we're podcasters.
Disasters and dead people.
Talking about dead people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do.
good times.
Well, I hope all our listeners have a happy, healthy, safe, fun year. And continue listening.
I don't know why I'm just repeating what you're
No,
saying.
it sounds cute when you do.
Okay, yeah, keep listening.
Keep listening. Tell all your friends.
Keep
Let
breathing.
us know what you think. Keep on breathing. And we'll see you next year, breathers, on another fabulous episode of All My Favorite People Are Dead. Bye.